Okay, time to go over the patch notes for Marvel Rivals Season 1. And once again, I'm not going to talk about this in terms of like a who's going to be strong, who's going to be weak. This channel's not about like winning. It's just about game design and why I'm feeling strangely optimistic about these patch notes. Um the Overwatch patch notes would always depress me before because I'd read them, I get unexcited, and I would just like I don't care. Like it doesn't address any of the issues I have. It's all continuing to band-aid, try and fix the problems they've created already, and I'm just not interested, right? Like it doesn't lead me to feeling optimistic, feeling like, oh, they're addressing the parts that aren't fun or giving me more strength. It's always like, oh, they're just tweaking tiny bits of numbers to already, problematic kits. Like that doesn't help for me. So in in Marvel Rivals patch notes, I feel optimistic because of the fact that a lot of what they're doing is they're making certain tanks like Thor or Venom have stronger ultimates because their ultimates are feeling weak. Something I talk about with Overwatch tanks feeling like crap all the time is that their ultimates just feel so lackluster. And for Marvel Rivals, they're like, we're going to make those ultimates stronger. And the nerfs to the already powerful tanks really weren't all that bad. They're slight tweaks of adjustments to kits that were already working. It's like these kits already work well. Like what works well, what's too strong, what's not strong enough. And they're trying to keep that strength amongst all of the tanks. Um, and just bring the other ones up a little bit more to join them, which I think is great because I don't, what's interesting about Marvel Rivals is I play, and granted, it could just take more time for the community to figure out how to do things. But even the most powerful characters don't necessarily feel all that oppressive. Um, it does still feel like there's things you can do to counter them or to play against them, and it just feels like the other characters are just like need a little bit more strength to bring them up on par with everyone else. It doesn't really feel like you need nerfs. It feels like you need other people to have greater strength, which is why I talk about, I've talked about before, which is just like giving people tools in their toolkit to feel like they could do something. And part of what they do in Marvel Rivals is it's like, hey, you have a lot of things that can kill people really quickly if you hit your shots. There's a lot of things that are really easy to do, but also still like a pretty great margin for error for how much is going on the screen. But they also are, rewarding through the use of skill versus just the use of the ability, right? Like Black Panther's change is pretty significant, but to good Black Panthers, I don't know. I think it's going to separate the uh, Black Panther characters from the great ones, because now it's just you have to time your engages and be smarter about it. You can't just jump in there. Hawkeye, it doesn't look like they're reducing the ability to one shot. It's just how often he could do it. Um, Black Widow increasing her strength, Hela increasing her survivability, but not her strength. Which once again, they're not taking away what's powerful and fun. They're saying like, hey, she can be that way, but now there's a greater risk. So you can still get killed by Hela pretty quickly, but you can also kill her much quickly, which then feels more fair in return. Um, Magic, her ultimate was feeling lackluster in comparison to others, buffing that. Moon Knight, once again, another one of just like increasing the damage. Like Moon Knight was already really good at certain things, but his ultimate ability was really just like it was a zoning tool I used it for. I would uh, a lot of times as I would put his ultimate behind wherever anyone was at. So I would ult behind them, throw an onk in front, and then try to like force them to back up into it or separate his team, sort of like using it like ball mines or something. Um, but yeah, increasing the strength of his ultimate to make it a little bit feel a little bit better was great. Namor adjusting the feel. This is what makes me happy. Adjusting the throwing of the feel of the Monstro spawn and Frozen spawn. Like games are about feel, and adjust the feel of like throwing those things was already kind of like weird and wonky. Like it didn't feel good. Like you press the button, you think to yourself like, "Oh, I'm gonna throw it on that wall," and it goes. You're like, that was the weakest throw ever. Like Anna's nade, you can throw it like 7 miles, and Namor is just like this weak little, toss. Um, but now he can throw into more accurately to a more desired location. Uh, Psylocke, this one nerfing her ultimate is great. Like, as a Psylocke player, I think this is fantastic because her ultimate was the cheesy part that rewarded you too easily for a character that was already strong through her kit. I think her ultimate was already kind of lackluster in comparison to what people thought. Like you couldn't really use it to kill everyone. It wasn't a group ultimate thing. It was like a if you had two or three people, you could use it. But if any more than that, it really started to diminish its value because of how much it could do. Because she swaps between targets based off of like health or something like that. Um, so it's not great at like executing a large group. It's good at like getting a few people. But now it's increasing the amount of ways you can play against it. It's not decreasing its strength, it's increasing the amount of ways you can play against it. That's super important. Um, and good Psylocke players will still utilize their left click, right click combo way more. Um, and executing people that way. So this is really good. They're focusing on feel, they're focusing on counterplay. Um, they're buffing the people who are lacking a little bit, who are lacking a lot in these instances, increasing the ability to uh, or improving like Squirrel's ultimate in terms of like how it's targets. Like all of these things are just bringing everyone up to join everyone else. And overall, that's like the general consensus here of what I'm seeing. Like what they're focusing on is not uh just hey, let's just bring these other heroes down. Let's try to make it survive more because no one wants to get one shot. It's like no, no, no. It's not that you don't want to get one shot. It's want to feel like you have some sort of options or counterplay against it, whether it be through map design or whether it be through the use of your own abilities or whether it be the fact that like maybe they are high risk like hella, but they also have a lot of damage they can do. Like give players the ability to just do it back to them. Like if you get one shot, just make sure that that player feels like, okay, I want to have the ability to be able to kill that person too. Because if they have too much survivability and too much strength, and too much damage and too much, and if they do too much of everything, you end up with a Kiriko, and then everyone hates you, and then everyone is just like the only person who's having fun is the Kiriko player, right? Um, Whereas like if you just give everyone strengths, maybe it's like they're a little bit strong. Like Psylocke is a little bit better at moving than she is at like just outputting damage, but I would rather take the movement over the damage because of the fact that I'm better at using my movement abilities than my aim. And so I take that trade off, and that's my play style. For other people who have really good aim, Hela, Hawkeye, Winter Soldier, Punisher, they're for that. Those are heroes for them. Like there's a hero for everybody, but it's just making sure that all of those heroes feel like you have the ability to fight back and improving the counterplay and improving the feel and seeing that in the patch notes leaves me very optimistic uh about Marvel Rivals' future and how things sort of are going to play out cuz yeah, that's all I got to say on the patch notes. All of this stuff here is great. Uh I don't want to comment too much on it without playing it because game design is all about playing it and it, as with everything in video games, you could read about stuff beforehand, you could think, hear that maybe something might be a bad idea, but the only way to know for sure is like once you play it. Like always keep an open mind when it comes to like game stuff and being like, take all of this stuff here with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, we're going to have to play it and find out. But just the fact of how they included their language of feel and counter like leaves me very optimistic about where they're headed and what they're going to do. I've seen people online talk about how the devs are actually good at their game and how they actually play it. And I think it definitely is reflected in sort of the language here used in these patch notes. Because the stuff that I'm seeing here, it's not just like trying to tweak numbers like Overwatch does. They're trying to tweak things up and down. Like, oh, it's already been created, so we're not going to touch it anymore. It's like, no, no, no. Like the stuff is there and it works. Now we can kind of tweak the numbers, but we're going to make stuff stronger or make it weaker depending on how well it's performing. But they're giving to give more counterplay to Psylocke as a Psylocke player. I think that's fantastic. Like this is why I say like I'm not about like just winning. Like there's going to be a lot of other Overwatch creators now, Marvel Rivals creators that are going to make you stuff to teach you how to win, to how to climb your ranks, and just like I get excited seeing stuff where it's like, this means the matches are gonna be more interesting. There's gonna be more back and forth between me and the other opponents of like, "Hey, how can I outplay the situation or how can they outplay me?" It's not just I press a button, I get value. It's I press a button like, "Oh, I did not track that ability," or, "Oh, I didn't pay attention to, like, that person coming out of spawn," or, "I they timed it perfectly and countered me or something in return." Like, that is a cool back and forth. That back and forth in terms of gameplay is what makes it fun, for me at least. And I understand that some people, respectively in the comments of my other videos for Overwatch, have laid out why they like 5v5. And uh, if you like 5v5 Overwatch, more power to you. I know it's to me it's a completely different game than what I signed up for. And some people like that mega, uber tank that's just running down at you, like, or the immortalities and the sustain and the fewer deaths. Like, for some people Overwatch 5v5 is fun, but for me, I love, like one of my favorite fighting games, or my favorite fighting game of all time was Street Fighter Third Strike. But when you're playing a fighting game and you have that sort of mind games back and forth you try to do with people, like getting that same feeling in Marvel Rivals is so much fun. um, so yeah, I am very optimistic to see where this patch what this patch is going to be like, and how it plays out, because yeah, I see nothing in here I take issue with, and it is kind of surprising, I will say, to see that. Um, I don't know. I guess some of the changes to like Jeff the Land Shark or Cloak and Dagger. There's a lot of things like with the win rates or pick rates and stuff like that too, like that. Um, I just did not see coming. Which, by the way, this is also really fantastic that they have all this for us. I think that them giving us all of this like data and stuff so we can just see is such a fantastic thing to do for the players. Like, so we can better understand things. I wish we had more data, in fact, more ways to sort of control it. But or more ways to see it and also understand, like, hey, this is how we figure it out, and stuff like that. So that way players can also understand and sort of get in on it as well. I think Blizzard keeping that sort of locked up tight, being like, no, 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 we have the data. You don't know what you're talking about here. We can just take care of all this ourselves. It's like, no, no, no. Like, let people take a look at it and just see what's out there. Um, because yeah, it's been interesting to um look at the ranks and look at the roles and see how well everyone performs and whatnot. And uh, oh, it's really interesting. She has the highest pick rate in Grandmaster and above. See, this is the kind of stuff that's fascinating. I'm like, I did not know that. And what's funny about Psylocke too, I knows about this, is that her win rate is pretty even across every rank, which is fascinating. I would have thought it would have varied a lot more, but it's almost the same across the board. Um, and nerfing her ultimate, I think, is a fantastic way to sort of get her back in line with everyone else. Um, yeah, I I think that Marvel Rivals. I know it's season 0. I know there's a lot of stuff still coming out. I know it's still the early days, but like, you know, delivering on a lot of the stuff that we didn't realize that we could have had with Overwatch, and seeing this in the patch notes, like, I'm really optimistic about seeing where Marvel Rivals goes. And yeah, so more counterplay is great, more feel is great. Uh, I think that Marvel Rivals is here for the long run. This is not going to be a short, quick game like I thought it was. And yeah, I'm gonna be playing, but I'll still try to like hop on Overwatch occasionally and still do videos on that because I still have ideas and stuff want to talk about, especially relating to Widow, Sombra, and everything else. Uh, anyway, yeah, I'll see you on Marvel Rivals.